for what you've done. Thank you for your newsletters. They deal with issues, not where you're going and what you're supporting.
Now you're gonna get in trouble.
No, I love your issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will miss that very much.
As a private property owner, you have a right to use your land. You have a right to occupy your land. And so when someone comes to me with a vacant lot and says, I want to do something with it, I recognize that responsibility to make sure the government doesn't get in their way. But at the same time, the person next door to them also has private property rights. And so you have to try and balance what it is that's going to be used on that private property. Will it negatively, materially impact the neighbor? For the most part, my experience is, nobody wants anything developed next to them. They love their vacant lot, they've been taking their dogs, they've been walking trails, vacant fields. Leave us alone, we like using this lot. It's okay, my view's not obstructed, I love it. And so when someone comes in and says, I want to build something, then the neighbor typically says, you know, that's not such a good idea, because I'm going to lose this, this, and this. So we try to balance that to make sure that it's compatible. When we've had housing tracts proposed, typically today, government is encouraging developers to build small lots, apartments, high density, just compact everything. Affordable. Try and find affordable.
Yeah.
So typically they're trying to push in as much as they can on as little property as they possibly can. So I have to recognize that there are a whole bunch of incentives to do that for the development community, because we are being told, we in the county and all cities are being told by the state of California, you must provide opportunities for housing to be built in your jurisdictions. Riverside County has to add 64,000 homes. The whole county has to add 160, somewhere in there, some number like that, 160,000. Basically, we are being told by the state, you must add over 300,000 people to your county over a span of X number of years. And if we don't do that, the state cuts us off from tons of funding sources that are required. And then, then the state takes over. So it gets really ugly really fast. So you've got to find a way to work with the state mandate. Now, I got a little ahead of myself. Counties, all 58 counties in California, are political subdivisions, which is to say, owned by the state of California. Counties exist because the state legislature created and allows the 58 counties to exist. Therefore, those 58 counties carry out the mandates of the state of California. The counties are the arms of the state legislature, the executive branch, the judicial branch. We carry out the functions they mandate. We hope and pray that we will get funding with their mandates to accomplish those things. Typically, we get about half of what we need to actually do what the state tells us we must do. And so that gets back to the point of, I got a housing tract proposed next to me. What can I do to minimize the adverse impact on it? Of course, you typically start with, I oppose it, I don't want it, don't build it. I typically, when residents come in and meet with me, say, okay, that's plan A. Now let's talk about what your plan B is, because the odds of shutting it completely down are pretty slim. So what can you do to make it compatible with your neighborhood? Where we usually used to start was, you have to build homes, you know, when it's at like a 20 or 150 homes, pick a number. We would tell the developer, the homes you're going to build across the street from the existing homes needs to be the same size and the same lot size and same square footage as the homes across the street. Maintain their value, respect what they already bought into, preserve that. As you go further into the development away from the homes, then we can start talking about your density bonuses that the state wants to make sure that you get so you can build more homes. Residents usually look at me like, what the heck is wrong with you? Why are you doing that? It's a choice But it's a choice that we typically don't have a lot of ability to maneuver around. We simply have to try and find a way to get housing into this county. The shortage of housing today is making it impossible for first-time home buyers to buy in this county. Whether you're a high school graduate or a college graduate, you probably have no chance in hell of buying a home in this county right now. When the average home price now is pushing $600,000. Who do you know that's fresh out of college that can afford that? Everybody's in apartments. Apartment rental rates used to be $1,200, $1,300 per bedroom, are now $2,500, $3,500 a month. That's more than what folks were paying for their mortgage payments. So it's this balance that goes on, and to be successful as a resident, you've got to develop the relationship with somebody on the supervisor's staff or the supervisor himself or herself in your case. You just have to. You have to be known. You have to be a known quantity. You have to be somebody that they listen to, that they trust. You come to our board meeting on Tuesday, and I'm probably going to say some things here I'm going to regret. There are people who walk into that board meeting who are the kindest, gentlest, professional people, residents, neighbors, who speak to real issues that are important, that matter. And you want to respect them and try and find a way to solve their issues. And then there are people who walk into that room who are loaded for bear, hand grenades, everything, they're ready to go. And everything is tearing you down as an elected official, calling you every name in the book, just beating you up. Now, if you were in that position, and you had to listen to somebody, who are you probably going to listen to? You're probably going to listen to the person that, I like what they're saying, and they're thoughtful, they're respectful. How can I help them? The person who's just ripping you apart, you could probably relate that they're just upset. They've been through so much, they're madder than hell. But it's really hard to listen to that. And when you get and work with them, it's really tough to work with them when they won't even have a conversation. They're just screaming at you. And this happens every week, folks. This is every week. Somebody is screaming at you. Whether it's from the dais, or you're at grocery shopping, or you're at a restaurant, or you're at a park with your kids, there are people who are just angry at the world, and you can't go talk to your state assembly member, you can't go talk to your state senator, you sure as hell can't talk to your congressman. We, the board of supervisors, are the easiest thing to come talk to and come yell to. So it's relationship building, and most people don't have time for that, and frankly, everybody who's got kids at home, you know, they're just trying to make a living and get their kids to school and get their kids to sports, and they just don't have time to worry about that stuff. You've got to have relationship building, in my opinion. Now, Jeff may see this from a different point of view, from a staff point of view of the phone calls that are coming in. We get anywhere between probably 50 and 100 phone calls a day into our office. And emails, lots of emails. Entertaining ones are after I send out my Jeffries Journal. Those
are busiest day.
That's a lot of emails.
No, I'd agree that starting with his point of be solution oriented.
Yeah.
You know, don't just say no. Say no, but, or we could live with this if this happened instead. Maybe the access to this development goes on a different road. Maybe, like he said, maybe the front end of this development looks different than the back end of the development. You know, maybe instead of, you know, one use and switch to another. That's harder. One of the things we get a lot, that again is just because people don't really understand it. Why are you putting a car wash here instead of a Trader Joe's? We need a grocery store, not a car wash. We don't make that decision. You know, he makes the decision of whether what has been proposed is acceptable or not. But the landowner gets to make these decisions of what they're proposing. We don't propose anything. I mean, unless it's a property we own that we're putting a park on, it's all brought to us, and then we have to filter through, is this an appropriate use for this community? And is it compatible? Is it zoned appropriately? If not, is it appropriate to change that zone? But starting early, you know, and sometimes it's fairness to the community. It's hard to find out early sometimes Sometimes you don't know about something until it's already at the board and it's too late to be involved early.
Yeah.
But if you do work with the office, with the staff folks, in a functional office, put it that way, not all offices work functionally, but there should be somebody on staff that works on these things, whether they're assigned to your community for everything, or whether they do the land use for an office. You know, if you work with that person regularly to stay updated on what's coming and what issues are affecting you. If you don't, you know, if you live in Woodcrest, you know, we have MAC meetings where we get regular updates. We provide regular updates on what's moving through the development process. So you get a sneak preview of what commercial center or logistics project or housing development is coming
And
early
post it
enough.
on our website too.
And we always have posted it on our website. We were unique that way. It's another thing we'll encourage be continued. But be involved with that staff member enough that when something is coming, and the city is the same way, they have staff too. You know, you can find out about something before it's too late to have any impact on it, other than a yes or no at the final vote.
Way in the back.
Okay, so I got another question. I just recently went to the council meeting on the 3rd, and speaking of, you know, like lovely people getting up and ranting a little bit, there was a gentleman there who was talking about what is it, the nonprofits, and, you know, accountability and what that money was going to. And, you know, you having, and you just mentioned it, but I'm just curious, how do you, how does that accountability work? And by the way, thank you too for your years of service. I just want to say that. I'm sure a lot of people, you know, think that, you know, once you become an elected official, you know, you're no longer a person. So, you know,
So to that point, I put in my last newsletter, some of you may have read it, that a person gets elected, and no matter what partisanship garbage is going on, they come in with true intent to represent the people to the government. That's their goal. They believe that 9 out of 10 times. Within the first term, maybe the second term, the perks of the job, and especially with the board of supervisors, but it probably goes to the state legislature, Congress, then the power of the job.
Relations with staff.
And relations with staff, who they begin to trust more than anybody. There's this transformation that occurs in anybody, best intentions of the world, where they get very comfortable, they get seduced by the power and the perks and everything that comes with the job. And pretty soon, their representation changes, and now they represent the government to the people versus the people to the government. And I don't say that lightly, because at least I'll speak for the board of supervisors, it's some very complicated, painful stuff that we deal with, trying to figure out the right decision. And so sometimes you're just making the decision based on the information you have and your gut feeling. And sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. Just frankly, you don't know. But when your philosophy changes and your outlook changes on the role of government and the role of elected representatives, you're going downhill from that point, in my opinion. And I've really worked very hard to remember who the hell I work for. Now, I don't say I work for just one person and you can fire me. I work for everybody together, and my job is to try and find a solution for you. When you contact me and say, I got a problem with this, or I got a problem with that, my job is to try and help you find a solution. And if I can't find you a solution, my job is to also tell you, I haven't found a solution for you. I don't know what it is. We get people calling us from all over the county, not just our district, all over the county, asking for our help because they cannot get a return phone call from somebody else. They cannot get a reply. And we pride ourselves on trying to reply the day we get a phone call or an email. Usually it's the next day at the latest. And we'll tell you, let us research that, give us a chance, and they'll be screaming at us because they're so frustrated with not having anybody return their calls. And you know, give us a day. Let us try and work this out, and then we'll call them back and tell them, here's an easy one. Call this person will answer the phone, they'll tell you how to get it done. Or we can't help you, you're not in our district. That's a terrible thing to say, but it's reality. Supervisors and their staffs do not play in another supervisor's district. We just don't do it. We can give them some phone numbers, some tips, but we can't go out and help somebody that's not our constituent. So,
Well, and there was a point earlier about us being agents of the state. A lot of our $11 billion budget is literally pass-through money from the
Yeah,
state and
most
the
of it.
federal government. That our job is to implement those programs like food stamps. We don't design the guidelines. We don't develop how much people are gonna get. We don't decide what's covered and what's not covered. We just process the applications and then do the checks. So we get a lot of those people screaming at us too, and we're like, we didn't make the rules, we don't get to make the rules. You know, we would love to be able to restore the money that you lost or to give you whatever, but you know, we can't always fix that. So sometimes the answer is over our head, and people don't like to hear that very much either.
yes, sir.
I would like to also thank you. I think the first time I ever talked to you, you were on the WMD board.
No?
But I used to live across the street from it.
Okay.
Well, actually, I still do. But I appreciate what your take on, if I have property and I want to do X, Y, Z with it, I should have that right. But if I want to take my property and build a big 1,000,000-square-foot warehouse that has 2,000 trucks going in and out of it every day,
Right,
now I'm affecting the roads, the
Yeah.
traffic, the air,
everything.
and so the thing of the project that's proposed for Willis, just by
Yeah.
the grove, has been tabled, correct?
I think my motion was take it off calendar indefinitely, or just take it off calendar.
So assuming that it doesn't get brought back on.
It's coming back.
calendar-
It's coming back.
Oh. But okay, so if they don't do anything, then would you end up at the county?
So it's no longer a project proposal. Once it passed by the commission to take it off calendar, did I use the word indefinitely? I don't remember if I did or not. It's kind of the same thing.
Tabled off calendar.
I think I took it off calendar.
They have to vote to put it back on.
Yeah, it's, that project cannot self-impose itself to come back for a vote. The commission has to approve to put it back on the future agenda for it to be considered. Now, they can come back, I would think that there's an argument here, that if they reconfigure their project, they can come back and propose a new project and start the process again. And this is gonna sound like my ego. I think they're just waiting for me to get off the commission. I really do. I was shocked first, let me first say, I was shocked my motion passed, okay? I wasn't expecting that the rest of the commission was tired of it too. And so when it passed, it's like, holy crap, it passed.
Boy, is Randall gonna be
But this is a multi-million-dollar project that
They've already
developers,
spent multi-millions.
yeah, they've spent millions and millions. They're not just gonna walk away from
No, that's
this.
not.
They're
right.
gonna come back with something.
Because I'm thinking that if they need all these houses in Riverside area, why doesn't the city annex it? And then, I mean, it's not like Lewis doesn't build homes. and
Well,
build, you know,
there's
10,
a couple
5,000
problems
homes.
with that. One is the agreement to dissolve the JPA. None of the jurisdictions can propose an annexation for 40 years. Now, that agreement doesn't say that a property owner can propose it.
Right.
So the property owner could do it, I don't think they know that yet. But a property owner could propose it. The other problem with anything of significant density is the airport authority. The city can override that, the county can override the
They just
airport
did.
authority. And I know, yeah, I read that, the city did that. I don't know in my 12 years if the county has ever overrode the airport authority's recommendation. I'm sure it's had to have happened, but I can't think of a time that it's happened.
I mean, that's how we got the golf course project in, wasn't it? When they were trying to put the housing on that, what,
Yeah.
the is too close.
Yeah, that's right, there was a proposal to sell,
Byron and Lewis.
yeah, to sell the golf course and turn it into housing.
That was just gonna be
Yeah, yeah,
for
General.
a cemetery.
Oh, that's another story. Yeah. So I guess, back to your point, I don't know that they successfully propose anything that has a significant number of occupants in it. I'm just not sure that you could get that through. There's probably a combination out there where you could do a mixed use proposal of lower density occupation and business type suites and things like that, that might work, you know, try and keep that open space, so the residents can enjoy their views and keep some of that. But it's gonna be a really tough scenario to come up with something that's gonna make everybody, I was the word happy.
Not miserable.
Not miserable, yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be a tough lift, and I'm glad I'm not gonna be here for that vote. That's gonna be a tough one.
So you think that's gonna come up again?
The rumor was that it would come back to the commission in March. But I've not heard that officially, so
Because the commission is all through July.
It goes away in July, right?
yes.
Supposed to have a time crunch.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So, are you willing to speculate on record on what the
Speculate on
votes are gonna
record.
be?
What a trap.
What the votes are gonna be with the change in the commission, happening, because Medina's replacing you, and there's gonna be a new person from the city attorney.
Well, so there's only 6 months of life left of the JPA. The commission still continues under the airport authority operations, but the land use is shifting to the county.
Just for the West End.
Yeah, I've had a few discussions with Supervisor-elect Medina. He seems to be pretty concerned about any more warehouses in general. I don't think he's a supporter of them. But, you know, I haven't asked him point blank, what are you gonna do on this? I believe he knows this JPA thing is pretty ugly, that there's some big challenges there.
Well, he was at the meeting when the vote was.
Yeah,
talking about the-
he reminded me.
He did campaign against,
Yeah.
or for fewer warehouses.
Yeah, I mean, my gut tells me he's gonna be a good vote on trying to cut down warehouses in general and trying not to let that project get going, but I can't make that representation to you. I don't know for sure. So my official answer is I don't know.
So you don't know what the vote count is right now, but you have 20 years of experience with counting votes, I figure you know something that I don't.
Those are the votes I know. The people I know, I can pretty much guess. The people I don't know, because I don't know who's gonna replace Rita. I'm not sure of that decision, but.
All right, one more question up here.
Of your, give me your 12-year tenure as supervisor, okay, what are some of the good things that you're proud of that has occurred as a result of your decision-making or of your involvement that has positively affected your society?
Oh, that's not fair. You know, each thing is unique to the community that are trying to work on something. We have communities, unincorporated communities, that time literally forgot in this county. We have communities that don't have water lines in their streets. They're all living off wells, or they're driving down in a pickup truck with a big plastic container in their back of their truck to fill up water from a water station and take it back to their home. Not just a couple of homes, hundreds of homes, where the county issued permits but didn't ask questions. Or people
Before our time.
before our time, yeah, before our time, or they built homes without permits, and somehow got power some ways from Edison. I don't know those answers. So we have embarked on efforts to start getting water lines put in. We had fire engines, ambulances, sheriff vehicles that couldn't get to homes in the winter when there were medical aid, heart attacks, things like that, because their roads were washed out. We've paved over 100 roads, just trying to help people out, trying to get as many doors, garage doors served with the pavement that we could afford. We brought in streetlights, we're bringing in sidewalks. things that we all take for granted in city boundaries as typical everyday infrastructure in a neighborhood. A lot of our rural areas that used to be rural, that now have 20,000 people, have no infrastructure put in. The county just literally didn't require it for decades, ever. And so we tried to push those projects through to help those communities just become a little bit safer. We try to get sidewalks near schools, connecting schools and libraries and fire stations and community centers. We opened community centers. We had one community center in Good Hope that had a structure of the community center and then a park next to it. And on that
Community
park,
center was the size of this room.
yeah, about the size of this room, had a park next to it. And on the park was a double-wide mobile home, 2 garages, and a swimming pool with a guy occupying it that had no lease with the county. And
He was
And I'm gonna get-
allegedly the host.
he was allegedly the host. And when kids came onto the property that he didn't like, he just turned sprinklers on and ran them away. And that lasted about, what, a month with us? Yeah, real fast. It's like, I'm sorry, this cannot continue. Complete reinvestment in the park, turned it into something nice for the community. Opened another park over in the Lake Elsinore area. Our relationship with the city councils, we tried to change what it was 12 years ago to, we are here to support the city councils, not interfere with the city councils. What can we do to help you and not tell you how to run your cities? We just tried to change the philosophy of we're here to help whoever, not get in the way. Some of you won't like what we got done, one of them which was food trucks. We got food trucks into the county. I happen to like food trucks, as you can tell. But, then we realized they got a little bit out of control. And so we're all dealing with food trucks being in places they're not supposed to be. Trying to work on those issues. So strengthening, working with our fire departments so that they all work together, stop having these imaginary boundary lines where your fire engine doesn't cross that boundary line. Everybody should work together. There's a lot of things that have gone right, that have really come together very nicely. Unfortunately, Riverside County still has some significant poverty, has probably 1 million people on some sort of a state assistance in this county, so we have a long ways to go.
We have a structurally balanced budget.
Yeah, that's one thing that we did change, is we got the county budget balanced, so I'm walking out the door with a balanced budget, I like that.
All right, let's give Kevin a nice hand. It's got a light so you know where you're going, and a little thing on it so you don't get your phone dirty with your fingers.
Oh, very cool. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've
All right,
got
thank
cake
you.
in the back. We'll take about 5 minutes. Everyone get a piece of cake. In the honor of Mr. Jeffries, we got chocolate, his favorite color.
I've had too much chocolate.
Take 5 minutes, get some cake, and then we'll hear from Ms. Cervantes, City Council.
Hey, how are you?
And then if you ask for something, you don't necessarily get all of them, right? So you can make a request.
Okay, we have, Larissa Cervantes with us tonight. She represents Ward 2, which some of us will be in Ward 2 at the next election. City council is kind of a strange thing as the lines move, it depends on when the election is. But we invited her to kind of thank her for paying attention to the issues in the city council meeting, especially for the projects that came up, the Sears, the Kmart, all of those that came up. She was the only one that I recognized that actually read the material. In fact, in one of them, she actually stayed up till 3 or 4 in the morning to read the material, trying to come up with questions and see, probing what's going on, which is a tough job because I personally don't think the staff provides all the objective data when they provide it. That's just mine, but she tried very hard. She was very hard with the Sears and the Kmart project, and tried to ask a lot of questions and so on. And she was the only one that voted no on it, which I know was difficult for her because she is and we certainly were not against doing something in there. It was just toning it down and making it so it was livable and structural. And I still don't understand the comments about condos. Well, we don't do those because of the liability. That liability insurance has been in California for decades. I was doing condos when that same liability was on before many of those city council members were born. So, and condos was what was being built as an entry level to get people into housing. And a lot of people my age bought condos. Their first one was a condo, and then they moved into a house. So why we're not building more condos and we seem to be on this apartment thing, especially now with the unbundled parking, because condos wouldn't create that problem. You have assigned parking spaces, and you could still rent them all out as long as you wanted to, and then people could buy them down the road instead of changing the deed. Anyway, I'll let her speak for a few minutes and maybe talk about the Central Park and any issues coming up the city council.
Thank you all. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm proud to be here and just to share, and I'll kind of give an update. I want to say thank you to our outgoing supervisor. He's literally walking out the door, but he's been a wonderful supervisor for us. Team, we don't do the work we do without our team, and I want to acknowledge my legislative representative here, Phil Kester, who's with me today, and our kiddos. We have our kids, so we have to sometimes, when you're working parents, you got to drag your kids to the meetings. So I hope we're inspiring them to be active like you all. I just want to say first, thank you for showing up. I think the supervisor covered it really great when we talk about the impact you can have on local government, and this is it right here. You showing up to the council meeting as you did the last Tuesday, you speaking, coming together as a neighborhood. We've really seen Mission Grove Alliance, we've seen the Our Now group as well come together, and you all have really shown the power of what happens when residents get together and say, fight for their community, whatever issue it may be. And so I will say, our supervisor said it perfectly with, it is hard sometimes to take these votes. A lot for myself, I do the best I can to base them off knowledge. I like to ask questions from different expert groups outside of City Hall sometimes. I sometimes go to my residents. I go to other organizations that also have tools and knowledge that they can pass on to me before I make decisions. And then I also do trust my gut. And I do try to vote with my conscience and my intuition, and I feel is going to be the best thing for our community at large. And even though I'm elected to represent Ward 2, and I'll just quickly add a caveat, which many of you probably know, I was running for state assembly. We just lost that race by a couple hundred votes, and it's okay. So I just want to share, and I know many of you couldn't vote for me because you were right outside the boundary, but for any of those that did support, I just want to say I'm proud to be on the council, and I was elected to be there until 2026. I'm so grateful that I continue to be able to do public service, and that is my passion. My passion that I think since I was younger has always been wanting to take care of people. I hope I pass some of that on to my daughter, but ultimately I'm proud to be here. And I will say, if I would have got elected to assembly, I wouldn't have been able to vote that day. So everything happens for
in on Monday.
I would have been sworn in the day before, literally, and I wouldn't have been able to vote. So everything happens for a reason, right? And I'm grateful that I always do believe I'm right where I belong. And so I do want to say, being here at Riverside with all of you, this is my home, this is my community, and I do the best I can to make conscious choices that I know are going to affect all of you. And you know, and when I think about, of course, the future of generations, you know, the generations that have been here for so long, and it has been hard with these housing changes. And I do consider myself a housing advocate, so to have voted no on some of these projects has been very hard for me. But I will say that I do believe I made the right choice when I looked at the research, the data. I want to thank Mr. Lewis for highlighting it does take homework. You know, our job when you vote us in is to literally go through those hundreds, sometimes thousands of pages of reports, and I don't take that lightly. So I just want to say also to all of you who took the time to go through the pages of the reports, it's incredible. So I really commend you all for showing up and doing your homework. You know, the future of the vote, I know some of you are asking what could be done. I will have my council assistants look into it. I know sometimes folks can file appeals. They usually, once it goes past the council level, it has to go to a judge, to like a court level. So it could obviously cost, you know, you all individually money, which is why sometimes it's a bit frustrating, right? Because your will and what you hope is for your elected officials to align with the community. So just want you to know, I'm here no matter what, and if you have questions, even though I represent Ward 2, with the redistricting boundaries, I do cover now in the future potentially a portion of Mission Grove as well. Just know that I'm here for you. So I know that Councilmember Condor represents you, but if you ever need anything, if you want to reach out, if you want to sit down and have a conversation, just know I'm here. And when the Mission Grove Alliance reached out, you know, we do my best to carve out time for. My door's always open. So, you know, we had a good hour-and-a-half meeting when we sat down to talk about the project, to talk about concerns. And as I said on the dais, I really wasn't sure where I was going to go. I wanted to be as open as possible to the project, listen to all sides. But you all know where I landed. So it was a hard vote, and I was disappointed to be, I think, the lone no vote. But I listed my issues, and just want to share, I'm happy to come back in January, and we're happy to do a more deep dive into Ward 2 and to share with you all the amazing new businesses opening up in Canyon Crest, all the amazing businesses we have on University Avenue coming in, all the development projects and the wins that we've had for Ward 2. I would be happy to work on wins for Ward 4 and for the greater part of the city. So there's a lot of great things happening, and if you're not signed up for our newsletter, please go online to riversidestate.gov. If you go to the wards, you can actually put your email in. You can get updates from us. Bill has a bunch of cards right here, so if any of you want to reach out, email, call me, please take a card before you leave today. But I'll stop there and see if there's any questions from anyone.
She was the only one that gave us an hour and a half of her time.
Yes, sir.
Is there an opportunity to request a revote? And has anybody suggested that yet?
So, the only person, the council rules do state that the only person, and it has to be within, I want to say 14 calendar days of the vote, has to be someone who was on the opposite side of the vote. So someone who voted yes has to request it goes back to council, and they have to do it within a certain time frame. So I cannot personally request it come back for reconsideration, but one of the other 6 can. So.
Any discussions in that range, or I don't know how much you guys talked amongst yourselves.
We talk on the dais. No, we talk when we have community events and whatnot, and sometimes if there are overlapping constituent inquiries. But usually when a vote happens, and we actually do have also. We can't bash each other, in public council. Once a vote's decided by the majority of the council, we have to honor what that vote is. But yes, unless a council member has the will to make a reconsideration motion, which has happened for other items before, that would have to take place. So if that is something that, if you hear, or if you're willing to talk to any of the other council members and see if there was a will, if there was anyone, I didn't see it that night, but if there was anyone you felt was on the fence, then that's probably usually a council member you want to go to see if they'd be willing to ask for reconsideration.
Thank you.
Since one of the things that we kept hearing repeatedly is this is a very walkable neighborhood, as we all know it is not. Being proactive rather than reactive at this point as far as getting some infrastructure in. Your thoughts on that, where we would go? I mean, like the kids can't even get a bus from there to King High, and that's just, a traffic situation that's only going to be exponentially multiplied. their standard pat answer is the district's okay with it, well, the district's not bringing buses. RTA, rather than doing catch-up, is there something we could go about to expedite that moving forward?
We are in the process right now of our general plan for 2050, so that has actually started now. I can find out, there's a roster of folks that each council member gets to appoint to be almost like a voice that's going to drive a lot of the conversations around specifically also transit and how walkable our communities are going to be. So it's a layer that's going to happen when we talk about the citywide future of what Riverside is going to look like. So I will say that the general plan is going to be, and we're going to have public community meetings, so as soon as we have those available, we'll make sure we get it to the group so you could share it broadly. But those meetings are going to be really important if you can attend them. Even if you can't attend, if you can email in your comments or suggestions, but that's going to actually help to frame the future of your neighborhood. And from what I understand, you have a specific plan. So another thing is we could look at your specific plan for your neighborhood. So this is all planning language, by the way, and my background is in planning, and that's what I kind of spoke to that night. But what we need to look at is your neighborhood, and now knowing that the character of the neighborhood is going to be changed, because instead of it being neighborhood built, this was for urban, more density. So what you're speaking to, right, with needing more walkable environment, needing additional public transit, that is something that the developer is going to have to work with our local transit RTA. But we can talk to RUSD, and I can talk to the superintendent to see what the future is going to be, because obviously the population is going to grow, right? There's going to be more kids, more families, as you said. So I don't know what that conversation is now, but we can certainly start those conversations with the right people.
So kind of building off what she was saying then, and listening to all of what Mr. Jeffries had to say about having to put in all of these homes, at what point do we reach a saturation level that it's just too many? I mean, we already know we were promised a certain amount of additional fire stations and schools and a bunch of other stuff, and yet we don't even have some of that stuff. But and we know we have to conserve water, and our water rates are gonna go up, but we do a good job conserving and they raise our rates anyway. And so we bring in all of this high density housing now, and it's more of a drain on the water, it's more of a drain on the police, the fire, the schools. And so at what point is to make these RHNA numbers work, is a community's, I mean, you know, pardon the, no take on any other country, but I mean, at what point are we a third world country because we just accepted all these numbers, but you know, the response time on a lot of stuff, it's not that quick anymore. I mean, you know, everything is taking a long time. And so.
Yeah, we definitely are, the city is definitely challenged, not just ours. We're now the 12th largest city in California. We are definitely, you know, the state is the one that issues based on our population. There's different factors that they give us to say this is where your goal number should be of what you have to build by this year period. So the challenge, and we have seen, just to share, some cities in California, I'll just give an example like Huntington Beach, who has said, we're not going to adhere to your RHNA numbers, and then they're being sued by the Attorney General right now for not building at the rate they're told. So we face consequences if we don't set those numbers and those goals. We set the goals, and I will say that as long as we set them, we don't have, to be candid, we're not going to be able to meet the goal. I'm going to be honest with you all. You know, it's like something like 20,000 homes, if not more. Off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly, but we're not going to hit that goal, mainly because of the cost to build. I mean, the cost to build is through the roof, which is why the biggest challenge we're facing right now is nothing but market rate being proposed, and it's, you know, multi-million dollar developers that can afford to build it. So, you know, the biggest challenge and what we actually should be fighting for is affordable housing, or housing that's going to lead to homeownership, right? And I think those are really what people in California still want to see. And so that is, to me, the biggest task that I try to fight for and look for and try to bring into Ward 2 when I talk to developers is condos, that we can, townhomes, can you rent to own, or what are those options? Land use, the land that we have, why can't we build on it, the city owns, and try to make those like Habitat for Humanity. We have some homes that we're able to build, and then we allow for families to move in and then eventually hopefully own those homes. We need to try to get back into that space, but unfortunately just with cost. So to answer your question, we're not going to be able to hit those numbers, but yes, we are going to see Riverside, you know, if we keep approving projects like this at this rate, we are going to see it become very dense, and I do agree with projects that we're gonna see congestion, we're gonna see other issues. If we don't keep up with the planning for our citywide that matches the housing, we're gonna have issues. So I know that's part of what my vision and goal is to try to make sure that we're keeping things on par, whether that's police, fire response, community centers, schools. And I think the biggest concern I have, and we've had in the east side just to share, is over 1,000 kids are bused out of the east side to schools throughout the city of Riverside. And we have been fighting for years to find the right land. So we're getting landlocked, really, at the end of the day too, when it comes to schools. So I do think we need to figure out how to make sure we identify the lands for the schools before we keep approving big projects and parcels, because we're not gonna have anywhere to send the kids to school, and then our schools are gonna hit capacity.
Schools don't help with arena numbers, though.
Yes, sir.
As far as these arena numbers are concerned, it sounds like the state, who is on high, is saying to all these communities, you will build X amount of houses for X amount of people in a certain period of time, or else. And my question is twofold. Number one, what is the or else, other than just losing money from the state? Because money from the state, this is the second part of it, I can't see the state going to Beverly Hills, Brentwood, Malibu, and Palos Verdes saying, you will build X amount of houses for X amount of people, be it low income or people in the same income. So then,
Those communities have arena number of one.
Those communities definitely, they are smaller, so their numbers aren't as large as we're seeing. But I will say, most of the
but
cities
they're in
actually,
LA County.
yeah, most of the ones you actually listed are some that have fought back, and they are being sued. So there's a couple, I think Beverly Hills was another one that you mentioned, that's like Huntington Beach, that's being sued. So the unfortunately, the counter side is if we don't at least set the goal in the number and start working towards it, then we lose the tax. We basically are going to lose your taxpayer dollars, you know, to go towards lawsuits.
My question is so.
So,
See, in other words,
so we don't usually want lawsuits.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
if we are a community and government is supposed to represent the people, not dictate to the people, why then can't the people say, okay, government, we want our community to be a certain way, and that's all there is to it. Let them sue us, and I'd like them to find something in the Constitution of the United States that says the state or the federal government can tell a community exactly how many people they must support.
Yeah.
And what kind of people are coming for 367 units? Where are they gonna get the people to come in?
I mean, we have, Riverside, just to share, is one of the top places in the nation that people are moving to. We were ranked just about 2-3 years ago. Times that this was the #1 place that millennials were actually moving. So we know folks that are around my age, about the 33, 34, are choosing for Riverside to actually be their home for their families. So there is a high demand, and mainly it's because of counties like LA County, Orange County, that people are being priced out. So they are coming here, and what's crazy is, right, this was kind of the affordable place for people to move to, and we are now actually, we're no longer becoming the affordable. Now folks are going up to the high desert, and they're even saying that the high desert's not becoming affordable. So California that's where we talk about being landlocked. We are getting into a place now where, and really, and I will say that the biggest reason why the state has put down these regulations is mainly because we saw that a lot of communities, and I'm not saying Riverside, but we were seeing some of these more high-end communities, beach cities, that did not want to build any type of housing or affordable housing. And essentially what the state has saying is that it's not fair to people that are lower income. It's not fair for people, again, and I will say, we have a homelessness crisis, right? We have an in-house crisis, and one of the things people ask us every day is, get people off the streets. What are you doing with the in-house crisis? The only way you can get people unhoused is to get them housed.
Is the state going to pay for some of their rent?
So that's why that's funding we don't want to lose, and that's kind of where then the piece comes in is if we have RENA numbers, if we have goals, if we have projects in the pipeline, then we can apply for funding. And the state has actually given Riverside several millions of dollars to help to build those projects and to help get people housed. So that is the bonus of when we actually follow and are compliant. We are able to actually get access to money that other communities don't have access to.
What type of people are they? Are they gonna be the homeless people or the immigrants?
You know, I'll say the majority of people, just to share the highest statistic of who's unhoused, is seniors. So I'm the chair of the Housing Homeless Committee. The highest population right now we're seeing become unhoused is our senior community. Those who are 65 or older, they're on fixed income, right? A lot of folks that are retired. So they actually are the ones that are being priced out. We have an item coming actually to council in January. It's the mobile park rent home, mobile park rental ordinance. Sorry, it's a lot of words. And that is going to actually see how we can have a fixed percentage so that seniors are not actually being priced out of their mobile park homes. But these are the challenges that we're facing. And so the biggest percentage is seniors. After that, we also see foster youth. So we see kids between the ages of 16 to 23. And the state has decided that folks that are a little bit over 18 are still considered youth. We also have veterans. We actually do have a percentage of veterans. We have other folks that are disabled that are in need. So the biggest percentage of people are that criteria. And then we also do see young mothers and children, those who are suffering from domestic violence that are in need of also housing. So there's a slew of different populations.
Seniors live in, they're gonna be 3 stories high? How can they go up the stairs? Do they have elevators?
They do. So now all buildings are required to have ADA accessibility. So they're all required to have some type of elevator if they're going to build that.
So you said that Riverside is a hot place to go, and families are moving here. Well, how many families are gonna move into a 1-bedroom apartment? Because when 75 or 80% of these complexes are 1-bedrooms or studios at $2,500.
Right.
And if you want a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, okay, now you're talking $3,500, $4,000.
Right. No, and that's where my comments when I was on the dais for this project that we just voted on was overcrowding. That's why we do see folks having to come together, you know, to pull their income so that they can actually afford a 1-bedroom. You know, families that are pulling their income to try to rent a 2-bedroom. I know some folks, you know, living in Canyon Crest, families that have 3 families in a 2-bedroom. So that's where I raise the questions about the parking that really is matching, right, with the units, because, and that's the thing that's frustrating is, we know that in California, we are not in a place where we're able to just walk out the door and go walk where we want to go. We're not there, unfortunately. I'd love for us to be there in the future, but right now we're very car dependent. So we do have issues with that we're going to see. And so I did have concerns with some of the units that were listed and the pricing of them specifically. The pricing we got today, by the way, is the market rate today. Those are going to go probably almost $1,000 by the time these are built. So, you know, and that's a reason too where, you know, there's, we get pushback sometimes about low income and what does that mean and, you know, who's moving into our community. But we actually, you know, one of the conversations we have in Housing Homeless is we're not even talking about low income, we're talking middle income. You know, folks are also barely trying to get by. So we need to figure out how to have rent that is set at caps and limits. And right now, there is no rent, you know, limit that we have in Riverside. So there's no rent control, essentially. So it's rare when you see cities able to pass rent control, and rent control, you know, could help so many thousands of families if it was something we looked at, but usually that's also seen as a very progressive item, so I don't see Riverside moving in the future to actually have rent control.
Second question. Andrew got up at the very end after Jim Perry got up and just swore that every project that Rubens does is just unbelievable, and I'm thinking, it's going to be for sale in 15 minutes as soon as you get the vote done. And then they asked Andrew, they said, well, do people have to pay for parking? Oh, no, they don't have to pay for any parking. You got to flat out lie.
Yeah, I know there was items in the report that if they did want to have an extra parking spot, they'd have to pay.
Oh, they have to pay for, isn't have to pay for anything?
They acknowledged it in the final EIR that yes, AB 1314 or whatever it was is in effect, and they will have to pay extra for parking, period, any parking.
So where are they going to park? They're going to park in Stater Brothers and ULS and Galaxy.
Yes.
And there's 58 parking spaces that are tandem.
Yeah.
in the project.
Just for all of our knowledge base, we're city, and we live right next to county. 252 homes, over $1 million each, are going to be built. off of Gentian, which will affect, again, Van Buren and Alessandro. And, you know, we don't get to talk about these in the same room. So I'm bringing it up in the same room because not only are we getting the apartment complex, but we're getting all these other homes coming in. So,
You're gonna get another apartment complex at Wood and Van Buren, 65 units on 2 acres. In the Reno Valley, 15,000 units.
where's the Wood and Van Buren? On the east?
Right across from Mason Hardware.
Thank you.
2 acres.
The question, based on what she just asked, is why can't, or why doesn't, the city council, knowing that these neighborhoods don't really want and can't really support this vast expansion that the state wants, why can't the city council and the county of Riverside say to these people who want to develop, you must put in the infrastructure, you must put in the water, you must put in the electricity, you must widen the roads, you must do these things to support this influx of people, instead of saying what they're currently saying, you put in some things, you do this, you do that, you widen the sidewalks or whatever, and then you get to take in the rental income for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So those are all what we call concessions that council is able to negotiate with the developers to see if what they're willing to give, and those get some.
No. I'm asking the question, why doesn't the city council not negotiate, but say, if you want your project put in, this is what you must do. No negotiations about it.
Oh yeah, no, we can,
Okay.
and that's where usually it's being seen as a negotiation to try to be diplomatic, but there can be times, and we have had times where we're requiring it. We're saying we're not gonna consider this unless you do X, Y, Z. So we can do that, to be candid. So it is up to the will of the council, though, to have to take that position and say that you are going to do this, or we will not approve your project.
And on that same note, since this community can't, doesn't want to support this 4-story complex that's going in, why couldn't, or why wouldn't the city council say, we'll approve it, but you must build it out in the county area where there is nobody, where there's wide open land, and you must put in the roads to get people to and from the high traffic areas.
So we can only approve what's in the city limits, so that's part of the reason why we can't dictate stuff in the county, and that's also why we've had really big challenges with I've tried to fight to help to support the pushback on the big, $1 million, the million-square-foot warehouse that's coming in potentially in the future that Kevin Jeffries is speaking about. I understand it's been stopped or paused or killed, but as he said, and I do have equal thoughts that I think it's going to come back. So
Part of
just
the
to share.
problem is that there are state laws that are in place that allows the developer to get away with certain things that are mandated, that the city cannot do. So such things as if it's an apartment complex with 10 units or less and it's done, you don't have to provide any parking at all.
Yeah. So
in some
there's
cases.
been.
So there are certain state laws that allow them to fast track and allow them give way on things because they want housing put everywhere.
Yes, and I will say to add on to that is, there have been bills, and a lot of these bills are actually been passed by some of our elected officials that are up in the Bay Area or in other really more dense cities in Oakland or other places like that, San Francisco, where density is needed because, right, they have to go up, they can't go out this way. So the challenge, though, and I think this is where, and this is where I was running and trying to think about the future, is we have to think about all of California, right, and how we talk about all of our communities are different. And when we talk about protecting even some of the fabric of what makes our neighborhoods unique, right? What makes them, we have historic neighborhoods, we have urban neighborhoods, we have some of them that are denser, that are old historic, like the east side's been there for over hundreds of years. And so our streets are so tiny, like our trash trucks can barely get through when everyone's parked on both sides. So, when I was running, I was thinking about that is, you know, we have to make sure our lawmakers that are at the higher level passing these bills and ordinances understand, and I think that's where our task and challenge sometimes at the local level is we have these bills that have been passed that are pushing us to move and accept and actually incentivize developers to have less parking, but how do we either hold the line or really fight to make sure that the developers understand that, you know, this sounds like a great project, but I don't know if this is gonna fit the way you're recommending it right now for Riverside or for this neighborhood. And then that's where your electeds really, and this is what I do as in my ward, is I try to really help to guide the developer to make sure it will fit with the integrity of the community. So we're not having these big projects be jammed in that are gonna create problems or challenges for the quality of life for the residents. So it is a hard balance for us to try to keep, but I think ultimately what we're seeing is some of these bills that had, I will say, I think they have good intentions, but in our communities like Riverside, we're seeing these challenges that we're facing.
Let's thank Clarissa, obviously, we
Yeah,
want
I
her to
know.
come
Thank
back. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in her being here, so we will
Yes.
invite her back anytime.
Yes, and I believe we're gonna see about helping to get your next location set up, so it might be at the Orange Crest Community Center, but we're gonna work on that. I'm happy to come back with the Ward 2 update and happy to answer any of your questions, and my door is always open, but thank you for all that you do, I'm grateful for you.
Okay, now, we're gonna light a fire in the back of the room. Have the deputy chief come up and tell us how to put it out.
See the treasurer's here?
Well, thank you, everybody. Boy, some tough acts to follow. Supervisor Jeffries and Councilmember Cervantes, and then me. So, Jeff Delory, Deputy Chief, Deputy Fire Chief in charge of operations for the St. Riverside Fire Department. Just wanted to give you some quick updates because I know it's already been a long night for you guys, so I don't want to keep you for very long. But probably the majority of my updates are great updates for us because what we're seeing in our organization is we're seeing a lot of changes, and some of them I think you all have seen as well. Probably the biggest one is that Fire Chief Michael Moore, after nearly a decade, actually a little over a decade, as our fire chief has retired. Congratulations to him. And he's enjoying his retirement in Corona, so that's outstanding. And with that, we got our new fire chief, Fire Chief Steve McKinster. Yeah, I was gonna say, you probably met Chief McKinster. Steve and I have come up in the fire service together. We're like brothers, so we fight like brothers. He's now my boss. He was my counterpart before he got promoted to fire chief. So we work really well together. I know what he's capable of. And that scares me, by the way, because he moves really fast. He gets a lot done in a hurry. He has a ton of knowledge. He has collaborated at very high levels, so he knows how to get things done. So what that means and what has happened for us, especially in fire administration, is we've seen a lot of changes happen very quickly, and so we've been very, very busy. However, they've all been great things, and some of the great things that we've seen happen is that when Chief McKinster got promoted to fire chief, it opened up a vacancy for a deputy fire chief, and that position was filled by somebody you probably also had here too, which is Chief Brian Gazzetta. Gazzetta came over as a battalion chief. He is a Mission Grove resident. He is now in charge of fire administration. Chief Gazzetta has a PhD in public administration through CBU. He's been in the fire service for probably about 28 years. Started his career in the U.S. Forest Service, went over to CAL FIRE, and he's been working for us for about 14 years now. So very knowledgeable individual. He's a fantastic replacement for Chief McKinster because he's very, very good at planning, which is exactly what we need. So he's been a great addition to the organization. With his promotion, we've also seen some retirements in addition to Chief Moore. Fire Marshal Craig Kodat is retiring at the end of this month, and his replacement is Garrett Coriel, who was a battalion chief, who's now moving up to division chief. Garrett will be the fire marshal in an interim position now until Chief Kodat retires. When Chief Cordell came up as fire marshal, it opened up a position for my counterpart that's sitting in the back, and that is Battalion Chief Chuck Tasker. And I know there's more than a few of you in the room who know Chuck from fire training when you came to the Citizens Academy. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce you to Chuck Tasker, to Chief Tasker, by having him come up and introduce himself. Chief Tasker, come on up.
Yes, so the next Citizens Academy, we're looking at October. So some of you look really familiar when I walked into the room and spoke with a few of you. So my name is Chuck Tasker. I'm the newest battalion chief here at the City of Riverside. Grew up here in the City of Riverside, went to Central Middle School, Poly High School, and then graduated from Notre Dame High School. I've been in the fire service for about 20 years. Started my career in Moreno Valley as a volunteer firefighter. Got started here with the City of Riverside in 2007. So I've been here for about 18 years now, and been really involved with our research and rescue program. Pretty much most of my career has been involved there. Just promoted out of fire training, where I worked with some of you during the Citizens Academy, and I'm just really excited to serve the community at a new capacity. So thank you very much for having me here.
So with Chuck's promotion, it's opened up a position for a training captain, which has been... There is. Which has opened up a spot for Steve Hallgren. Steve was a captain on our hazmat team, and now he's taken over in Chuck's position, and he's going to do a great job. So we will see another battalion chief get promoted at the end of the year. We have a list that we've established, and there's 3 more people that are on that list. The chief has interviewed them. We've discussed those individuals, and we have that person picked. We're just not going to tell you who it is. So great times for the fire department. Other things that we've been working on is Chief Gazetta, along with myself and Chief Moore, have been working pretty extensively on a community wildfire protection plan. So this plan is an extensive plan that's going to help us in conjunction with the master plan that the fire chief is planning on creating, will help us to work through some of the challenges that we've had recently with wildfires, and that we'll have in the future with growth, because we've talked a lot tonight about growth and expansion. And so with the master plan, we're going to look at where our fire stations are. Are they in the right places? They were when I came on the job, but that was almost 30 years ago here in the City of Riverside. So it's very likely that they're not in the right spot anymore. Or if they are they big enough? Do we need to add additional units? Do we need to add additional staffing? So we're going to be looking at all those things. We're going to be looking at our EMS program. We now have 201 rights, which means that we can administer our own EMS program. That is a battle that we've been fighting for about 15 years. And we now have it, so that gives us some abilities to do different things with regard to EMS. One of the things that we've already done is we have rescue squads. When rescue squads typically go out, their focus is medical aids, because the majority of our calls, by far, are EMS related. So we don't want to take a big fire engine out there if we don't need to. So what we're doing now is we have rescue squads, but now that we have our own rights, what we're going to do instead is we're going to have rescue ambulances. In the future, there may be a possibility that we look at our own transport program, which would be another revenue generator for the city and for the fire department, so that would help us. We'll see how that goes. It's a long ways, it's a lot of work, it's a long ways to go, but we're headed in the right direction. Chief McKinstry has some really great vision. I think that winning the 201 was really because of the work that he put into it, so that's good. This plan is an excellent plan that Chief Gazetta is working on, and I think we're going to see some very positive stuff come out of that. So that's what I have for you. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have.
Okay, let's thank the Deputy Chief.
Who's going to do what?
Be in charge of the CERT program. A lot of fire departments have a deputy chief or somebody in charge of that.
So the CERT program right now would be under Chief Gazetta because he has the EOC. I have training in EMS and then he has the EOC.
We've been very active in that.
Okay. And Philip does a great job with putting on those classes along with ESLS and Captain Smith.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
5 minutes for Melissa from the Water District to give us an update. After everyone got their bills in the mail. We'll have plenty of time to ask those questions next month.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. Sorry, I'm feeling a little under the weather today, so. So I just want to give everyone a quick reminder that our General Manager Craig Miller will be here next month. I'm not sure of the venue yet, because I know that it's in the works, but he will be at the next meeting. So if you have any questions about your rates, your bills, or the letters that just came in, upcoming things to look forward to at Western Water, any, Western Water related questions, he'd be happy to answer, because he is giving an in-depth overview and presentation, followed by a Q&A session. So just wanted to remind you about that. And then also, we just created a new customer contact information form. I know in the past, if customers wanted to update their information, they had to just only call or go in person. Like say if you had an address change, things like that. But now you could just do it all online. All you have to do is go to our website, westernwaterca.gov/update my info. You just fill out a few questions on there, and then our customer service team updates the information. With that, you'll get like text alerts. If you want, you could opt out, or email, call, any kind of notifications that are timely. Like, say if there's an emergency leak or we have construction going on along your street or in your area. Those are all very important updates that you should want to be aware of. So just wanted to remind you all about that as well. And then I just wanted to share, save the date for April 26th. I know we're only in December, but we will be having an open house. So I'll be sharing reminders in the coming months, but pretty much we're gonna have food, water education booths for the kids. It's open to the public. You can kind of walk through Western.
And free water.
Yes, free water. You can walk through our building as well. I'm sure you've all seen our headquarters down already. So I'll be sharing more details as like the event committee ramps up planning. So I think that's all I have.
Great, thank you.
Does anyone have questions? Thank you.
All right, we'll wrap it up with talking a little bit more about the Kmart. How many of you were there at the meeting or called in? A lot of you. Yeah, pretty disappointing. The disappointing part was not so much the vote. For me, was the fact that it appeared that 6 out of 7 of the council members never read any of the material. And that was obvious by the fact that they didn't ask the questions that I would have automatically answered right away. Like the parking issue, the unbundled parking law, those things they never asked about, so you could tell that they never read it. And some of their comments about just overriding the AOUC were just, who cares what they say? They don't know what they're doing. We overrode it 20 years ago, so we'll overrode it again. And my attitude is, look, if you thought they overrode it, they were overridden 20 years ago, it shouldn't have been. You had 20 years to change it. You had 20 years to go change the AOUC into what you think they need to be, instead of just arbitrarily deciding, well, their word is no good, somebody else's word is better. I mean, that's the reason we have these commissions and committees, in order to provide an objective analysis of what's going on.
It's a known fact that the developer knows much more about air traffic safety and airplane patterns than any airport.
Well, and it was pretty obvious it was a vote, sympathy vote for the Rubens, obviously because they've been around for so long, and yes, they've done a lot of stuff. But you have to remember, they've done a lot of things that they made money on. And they're here to make money, and I understand that, they're developers and they own properties, but that's the bottom line, they're here to make money. And the problem that I have with all these projects, and the reason it's difficult to get any of these, is once the city acknowledges and says, which probably was done back in 2022, when Anton brought them the idea, and they agreed to it. Because why would a developer go through all that engineering and spend all that money if it was a wish list and, you know, it's already so. Somebody at the city already said, yes, this is a good idea, it looks like we'll do this. What it automatically does is drives the value of that land way up. So if that value of land, let's say as a Kmart and the lot and the parking lot, let's say was worth 10 million. As soon as you decided you could put 347 apartments, as soon as you calculate that out, the income, the expenses, and you capitalize it, that land now goes from 10 million to 20 or 25 million. And then the rest of the commercial lots, because that's like a 40-acre parcel, the one from Kmart to the theater, that side, not across the street, is about 4. Well, this is 10 acres. It's 25–30% of that lot is now residential, which means the rest of the commercial goes up in value. So it's a catch-22 in the fact that once you change all these commercial properties to residential, you're driving up the value of the land you just rezoned, you're driving up the value of the remainder of the commercial property, and now you're driving up the rents. Because now you just drove up there. So it didn't help inflation any by doing all that stuff. So we still have some things we can do. There's some legal action we can take and some other things we're looking at. They still have one more vote to make because they couldn't vote on, they voted on the intent of everything, but on Tuesday they voted on the general plan as part of the consent calendar, so we can still show up and speak there. One of them, you know, to bring reconsideration, and we'll try to bring up some points there that they didn't realize because they didn't read the material and understand what was going on. And one of the biggest ones was Harry carried on and said, well, this is going to be a Rubin project, and they do build great projects. The Mark, if you've seen it, Brian and I took a turn of it. It's gorgeous building and well done and downtown, right where it should be. The trouble is, they're not going to do it. She's going to sell it. That was her intention, unless it's changed, was to sell this project, developers lined up, get them to bid on it, and sell it all ready to go with the plans, you know, approved.
Probably from the East Coast.
Probably, yeah, Baltimore, or wherever the one was from Steve. So, I know, Jay, you had something you wanted to read to the group concerning the Kmart?
Yeah. Actually, I can't read it anymore because I gave it to Mr.
Oh, you gave your only copy.
But let me just say this. I was at the meeting, and one of the things that I noticed was that you guys had absolutely no chance from the start. The way the city council meetings are set up, you guys come in, you say your piece for or against, and once that's done, the city council people, they can talk for as long as they want, say whatever they want, and when they ask questions, they never ask questions to the public about anything that has to do with the project. And they let the people who are for the project, who are promoting the project, talk as long as they want. And if they say anything that's not factual, you have no chance to say that's not factual. If you try to say that's not factual, they shut you down. So I'd like for everybody in this room to see if you can support Ms. Cervantes. She says she's going to try and look into this. I'd like to find a way to have the city council change their rules so that after the council people say what they have to say, the public has an opportunity to address matters of fact that were misrepresented. Not opinions, not tell stories, but if somebody up there says something that is factually incorrect, the public should have another opportunity to bring that up and have it part of the record. That cannot happen now. One totally different subject, one of the things that I wanted to let everybody here know is they're talking, these numbers that they're talking about for increasing the population of all the cities around. Okay. There are two organizations and this is happening all over the world. There are two organizations, the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and the BIS. They have plans in place I'd like you guys to look up. You can look up the WEF, the World Economic Forum. It says it right there on their page. They're pushing a project called Project 2030. And in that project, they want something called a 15-minute city created all over the planet. And what that means is they want to cram people into a very small area, put everything those people need in that small area so that they can walk or ride their bikes. Within 15 minutes, get you everything they need. All shopping, all entertainment, all schools, whatever. They want 15-minute cities. The problem is, once they establish that, they won't do it by 2030, but they will try. But once they establish that, they now can fine you if you go out of that 15-minute city. You will not be able to be allowed out of that 15-minute city without getting fined.
Kind of like the movie with what's his name, where he was basically in the city that they made up, and he discovered.
Yeah. So I'd like you guys to look up and learn about the WEF, World Economic Forum, and the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, and look up those projects and understand that that's where all of this is coming from. They are a totally unelected body. They are high-powered business people who are combining with young politicians from all around the world to push these programs. And the way they're going to do it is these young politicians, or some of the older ones, they are going to mandate this by creating these new laws that put these things in place. Every community is going to think, oh, this is happening here, blah, 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 and not realize that it's happening all over the world.
To go along with that, there's another one you can look up called Strong Towns. That's an effort out of Minnesota. They've got a lot of money behind them, and they're setting up chapters all over the country. And their whole pitch is that suburban America after World War II was a failure. It was all a complete failure, and it's failed us all. It's been discriminatory, it's been this, it's been that. We need to get rid of all zoning. It's going along the same line of what he's talking about, the 15-minute city. They want to make everything walkable and bikeable, and they're setting up chapters. In fact, they had a chapter meeting here several months ago in Riverside. We found out afterwards to try to set up a chapter. They've got a lot of money behind them, and the same thing, it's the influence, city councils and so on, with, you need to start following this track. And I actually saw an ad for Strong Towns on one of the city's marketing thing, so they've already gotten to them and introduced themselves. But look that up, Strong Towns, yeah.
If you, just one last comment, right quick. If you remember in the meeting, we had two of the city councils. Connors was one and Hill was the other. And then we had a young man off at the end.
Falcone.
A young man off at the end. I want you, for those who were at the meeting, I want you to remember the attitude that they had, the way that they were saying, no, this is going to happen. You will have to get used to it.
Yeah.
This is what's coming. Too bad. And the young guy said, oh, Riverside before is gone. Riverside will be changing. These are the people, like I said, that are pushing this, and they're not representing you, they are commanding you.
Well, he actually said the single-family home was dead.
Yeah.
He said they don't build them in California anywhere.
Anywhere, they're not gonna build them anywhere.
That was Falcone.
Anyway, any other
He's very-
comments on the Kmart?
exactly
We'll
what
get
he does.
messages out to you on it. Yeah,
I'm sorry?
any more comments on Kmart, those of you that were there?
Yes, this,
Everyone's talking about our videos, by the way, the 4 videos.
our cute little videos.
Cute?
Cute
Yeah,
little
cute,
videos.
that's what they said.
Yeah. that was a little.
I think they tried to find a way to kill those in the beginning. If you noticed,
Took 'em a minute,
the mayor was trying to, and then she was told, nope, they're under 3 minutes.
They were very good, they were more than cute.
So we're gonna make some more.
Yes.
We think that's a good way to get the message out. People pay attention to videos more than they will reading something necessarily.
You can't do them all in a row.
In 3 minutes.
You need to break them up a little bit.
Well, we did that there just to
That's
get
how it
it
worked out.
originally worked out, but ordinarily they'd be 3 minutes and sit on their own. Yeah.
If you look at Zillow, when you look at housing or housing in certain neighborhoods and certain zip codes, it will provide a walkability score.
Yes.
This is going the same direction, Redfin, Zillow.
But the walkability score here is not very good.
It's a watchful day. They called me 1,000 times.
Savon just mentioned the general plan update, so that's happening over the next 2 years. I'm on the general plan advisory committee, one of 20 people. Do comment, there is a city website, which I sent the link to Louis for, hopefully you'll send that out to everybody in the community. Do put things, there's places where you can put things on maps and stuff, but do comment. Like, if you guys have enough comments, we can amplify it in the advisory committee and maybe get someone heard. So that's, just wanted to say, please do participate.
One other comment, you brought up in the meeting that Chuck Conger had said to you, this was a done deal.
Yes, they did, and many people have heard
He
that.
told me that on the phone.
Chuck Conger, on the second meeting I went to, this meeting, in, Texas Cantina, he sat at my table with my wife and I and said, don't worry about the apartments, don't even mess with them, this is a done deal. He denied that he said that, but he said it multiple times.
He told me that on the phone.
He said it about Arnell, at the first Arnell meeting, we were there. and he said
I've been a follower of
No,
ethics.
no, this was decided in 1996.
If you'll remember in that meeting, in that meeting, city council meeting, later on, actually admitted to, not actually admitting, but actually admitted to the reasons why he said it was a done deal. He said, and he lied, the state is requiring it, and if we don't do it, they will come in and take over. But like I said earlier, can you imagine the state
Let
coming
me
in
explain a
and
couple
telling
things
any
on the
community?
RENA, on the RENA numbers.
They'd have
Number
to
one,
keep
the
sheltering too.
RENA requirements that's put on every county and city come out of blue sky. There is no justification for them all. Our growth rate is about 3,300 people per year. It's been that way, and it continues to be that way, not the rate that they're claiming. They claim they want 180,000 new housing units every year, yet the growth of population in 2023 of the whole state was 67,000 people, which is only 20,000 units. So those numbers are all pulled out, but they do have laws in place. Huntington Beach just got nailed by the 9th District Court, and they basically enforced the laws, and they can come in and fine you at $100,000 a day. They can do all kinds of stuff if you don't make some attempt. And you don't have to hit the numbers, but you have to make some attempt that you are trying to do your best to hit them. But they can't use every project as the reason for approving it. Well, we have to approve this project because we have to have the RENA numbers, so we need 500 units here as opposed to 200 units. That really doesn't fly.
Apparently it does, because that's exactly what they did.
Well, but the trouble is,
They're not under oath, man. They can say whatever they want.
they're hypocrites in one sense, because another project comes up like Casablanca, which we mentioned, and they all carried on and said, oh, listen to the people have said they don't want it, and we need to listen to the people, and even the people that were against it are not from the area, that were for it are not from the area, and they gave them, excuses why they got the for. What they forgot to say is in that case, there were 94 e-comments on that Casablanca one. Over half of them were for the project. And they never mentioned that. And most of them were local people that wanted family members that were seniors to live there near them and so on. They had reasons for it. So one of the things, and you mentioned, Jay, on the way that we have a list of stuff that they're not doing. When they issue out the minutes of a meeting and the next meeting, they don't bother to say how many e-comments there were and how many were before and for and against. So you don't even know they exist. You have to go nowhere to go on the website to look them up. So they don't even mention them. unless one of the council members mentions them during the meeting, they don't even get mentioned. The comments that get written in, like email into the city council members, sometimes they end up in the data at the end of the report, sometimes they don't. We understand there were several of them from Stater Brothers and other stores that said they were for it. We cannot find them. If they're out there, we cannot find those emails or those letters. So we're gonna keep working on this, we're not giving up, so hang in there.
Real quick, I mean, like you said, you sat with Chuck and he said, done deal. Anything the city council says and you know is not true, send it to me.
Yeah.
Better if we have it on recording, but send it to me. But you also have to have as part of the record if in case there ever is a suit that gets filed.
Right.
If it's
So
not in
any
the
of you
record, you can't bring it.
But for example, at the meeting, Chuck said, because in my cute video, I had the comment from the Air Force that says, we agree with ALUC not to approve this. Chuck said, that's not true. I talked to the Air Force 4 hours ago, and they said they're for this. But obviously, he didn't tell us who he talked to.
Upper brass or
And the
something.
guy that empties the trash doesn't count. So,
I talked to the ALUC today.
I'm putting that in my video because the comment that I have from the Air Force is actually in the documents that they had given to the city council. So they didn't read it, because otherwise they'd know that's what the Air Force said.
And I
So-
did call the ALUC, or called the ALUC today, and got the name of the civil engineer at the base that's responsible for those comments. And he said if it comes from anybody else but him, then it's just not very viable. So we do now have a name and contact at the base,
So can't we start a process to recall, oh, he's leaving, never mind.
Yeah,
Never mind.
he's out in
Connors is out.
No, he's not out. He's running for re-election.
Well, he's running for re-election.
Yeah, he will not be
I'm gonna follow him door to door. When he's begging for people to vote for him, I'm gonna knock on the door after him and say, don't vote for
We have to
him.
have a good candidate to run against him.
True.
If we end up with 4 candidates, it'll be a losing proposition because more people know him obviously than we know the candidates. So we have to come up with a good candidate to run against him. A number of us are in Ward 2, so we can't run against him. So,
Yeah, I mean, again, the other thing too is we could start a recall, try to recall someone.
You still need a viable candidate to run against him.
Well, yeah.
I tried that with our governor.
But I'd rather just fire the shot across the
Well,
bow.
the recall process is different than it used to be. It's 2 votes.
Right, but you still have to have somebody to run against him if he does get recalled.
Right,
Yeah.
but the first vote is, do you want to keep them or not, yes or no? And then if it's a no, we don't want to keep them, then you have a second vote a little time later for who the replacement's going to be, and he can run again, obviously.
And the only reason we're thinking about doing the recall now is because right now we're all in Ward 4. Come 2026, half of us will be in Ward 2 and half will be in Ward 4. So what we could do is we could recall someone, then we could all vote for someone in, and that person would only be there for a year until the 2026.
I say based on his line, we should just start the recall process now.
Takes 3,000 votes, everybody's got to get out.
3,000 signatures, and we got
3,000 signatures.
180 days, 120.
Ward 2, is this what they're?
No, it's the current Ward 4.
Okay.
Current Ward 4.
So
could be
basically,
3,000
Candy Crest are Ward 4 until the election of 2026.
So they would be part of that. So you need 3,000 signatures to create the ballot. I think it's 180 days or 160 days. It's really not that bad for 3,000 because you can get 2
You can
signatures
get that
in each
easy,
household.
sit in front of State of Wheeler,
It's only 15
an hour.
So you get the signatures and then the county clerk has to review it, make sure you gotta get more signatures in case they kick some out. But the county clerk, we sat and went through with it. The county clerk has been very good about giving us all the information we need to know about recalls, initiatives,
I ran 3
and all that
recalls.
stuff. And those are another thing that down the
You're
road.
hired.
we might want to
Right.
consider. We can just change the rules though.
You think the mission goes in?
We can put up an initiative and have people vote on it and bypass the city
Yeah,
council.
their manager.
And they can decide their new rules and how they do
Those
things,
rules
how they
gotta be
do their
part of it.
meetings.
Through petition, you mean, signatures?
Through an initiative, yeah. When we get enough signatures, then there's a ballot. Yeah.
I just want to remind everybody, we've got a lot of people signed up tonight, as, you know, paying their dues for this next year. Anybody who hasn't, you know, who still wants to pay their money, for $12, it would be great if you come on
And
back.
if you get any of your neighbors too, by the end of the year, have them.
Great Christmas gift to give. Give it
Okay, folks, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.